and it's attending. And all of you probably think, I attend to people, I pay attention to them. When I talk to people, I see them. It's much more than that. Attending is giving the gift of presence to another. The gift of presence. Sharing something of your deepest self. In other words, when you attend to something, you are so focused that your heart is connected to as much of their heart as they will let you have. So that means a lot of things. But the first thing, before I tell you what you attend to, I want to talk about 3 preconditions, because one of the reasons we don't attend is because we're not ready to. Our hearts aren't ready to give to another. We don't want to do that. So after church on Sunday, we just listen to a sermon. Now we have a break between church and Sunday school, and then we're going to go to adult class, and we see maybe 5, 6 people we know. And what do? We sit and talk, and you say, well, how did your week go? They say, fine. They start telling you something, and you see somebody else you know. Oh, hi! You know? And then, ooh, it's almost time for class. I gotta go. See, we don't really give that gift of presence because we have so many distractions in our own heart. And so I just want to say, when you're doing this intentionally, now in every relationship, you're not always going to be able to attend to the degree that you would if you're doing it intentionally. Like if you're a small group leader, you're going to model this stuff to the rest of your group so that they learn how to do that. And so when you do that, you should really take time before you lead a group to ask yourself a couple things. How quiet is my soul? Is my soul still? Is it quiet? I read a couple of emails on the, I didn't get to my emails, so I didn't know where this was going to be held tonight. And I was wandering around the other church, not the big campus, and up to the room where I always do community and stuff, and where they do the journey, and I thought, well, I thought that's what John said, he was going to get it up there. And so I was kind of wandering around asking people. Nobody knew where John was. And walked over to your office. Nobody was in there either. And saw Dave Carter. He says, well, I'm going to be in the room above the commons, so I know he's not going to be there. So anyway, I was wandering around. My heart wasn't still. It just wasn't still. And I remember I got to my car, and I thought, somebody suggested go North Campus and see, so I thought I would. But before I left, I took up my Bible, and I read a few verses of Psalm 23, and asked the Lord to just give me a quiet, peaceful place, quiet waters, a still soul. Because I wanted to come from a place where I cared about you tonight. And when you come with a lot of anxiety and anxiousness or a lot of distraction, and then you walk into a group where you need to be present and give attention, you need to find it yourself first. And so I just sat there, and so then I was really late. I sat there for, well, I thought it started at 7 besides. So it was about 7 o'clock now, and I was sitting in the parking lot over there praying and just reading scripture for a few minutes. I thought it'd be better to be 5 minutes late and be still than to be on time and be anxious. And you need to know that. You just can't walk into a group or a relationship to where you're going to be listening and opening your heart to them and have a million things go on in your heart. You just need to be still. And so, this stillness, how quiet is your soul? The second question I would have you ask is, how safe is your soul to enter? Remember, you're connecting your heart to that other person's heart, Do you have a safe heart to enter? Now, what do I mean by that? Primarily, what I mean is, are you in a place where you want to evaluate, judge, or be critical? If you have sort of a critical spirit, or you tend to evaluate people a lot. You know, you get a small group and you kind of have a handle on each person, and you kind of, when they open up their mind, you kind of know where it's coming from, and you have this sort of critical spirit towards them, or judgmental spirit. A judgmental spirit in a room can be felt, just like that. A distracted spirit can be felt, just like that, especially by someone you've met with before. So if you meet with the same group week after week, they get to know you. They know when your heart is quiet and when it's not. And so it's really important that you have a heart at that time that's ready to have somebody enter. Now, you can't give that to yourself. So the only way you're going to get, I mean, we all have a million distractions. We have so many thoughts and things that we're doing, and so many different ways that we could be distracted. And whenever you're real distracted, you do become more judgmental and evaluative and more wanting to fix the other person. And the only way you can find quietness in your soul and your soul becomes safe to enter is through the Spirit's work, and you pray. You pray for that. You pray for the quietness in your soul. I was talking to Mark Sosi. It's the man I teach with son who also teaches at Talbot. And we had chapel this morning, and I sat next to him and I asked how his wife was, because his wife is going through chemo for the third time. And I said, how's she doing? And he said, well, have you ever seen John Piper's book? And I said, no, I haven't. He said, well, when our souls become too anxious, we go to that book because it so helps us to find the quietness of the Lord again. And he said it has prayers in there that just help us to find that peace of God and to find God's goodness again. When you're going through hard times, you may still be leading your group. You know? Can you put all that aside and not think about it? Probably not. But God can do that for you. He can open your heart, make it a safe place. He can give it quietness and peace that's beyond understanding. When I went through cancer 2 years ago, I could not believe the peace God could give me when I went to him. But that meant I had to have time to go to him. I had to wipe my calendar clean and spend time with him. And so a lot of how much this works and how much you can do what Jesus did, he equipped you to do it when he created you. But how much you're able to do this is going to depend on how much time do you spend with the Lord. If you don't spend very much time at all, your soul is probably distracted by a lot of things. And that's, I'm not telling you that you're never going to have a distraction again once you start doing this, because you'll probably have more. And so, is your soul quiet because you spent time with the Lord? It's the reason we developed Hilltop. It's the reason God gave us the vision, because he wanted people who were leading to spend time with God. God is calling us back to himself. Our world has become far too busy. Stillness, safety. The third thing, do you have the capacity to love another? Now, what gives you the capacity to love somebody? Remember this compassion. When Jesus came with compassion, he came with love for them. He wept over the city of Jerusalem when he came down on the donkey. He wept, he had compassion. Now, what gives you that capacity to love another? Well, again, are you receiving the love from God? Are you receiving love from God through others? Primarily, the way God loves us beyond his sending his son and through his word is he loves us through others. Do you receive their love? When you get a compliment, do you receive it? Or do you just kind of, oh, that's because da-da-da-da. Kind of shove it off somehow. We need to receive when there's love coming our way. That's God filling our heart's capacity to love others. We have to receive love to give it. If you're coming into leading, not having good solid relationship with God and others, and that's not developing in some way, you probably aren't receiving very much. And if you're not receiving very much, you don't have a lot of capacity to give. Jesus went to the Garden of Gethsemane because he needed a greater capacity. And his Father gave it to him. He needed a greater capacity to love. We need greater capacities to love. Are we going to the sources and receiving what God does send to us? One of the practices I started about 5 years ago is a discipline in my life now. I start every morning with looking at very carefully my day before and thanking God for the goodness that he gave me in the day before. And it just amazes me when I sit down. This is the next day after I do this every morning, so I'm looking, tomorrow morning I'll look at today. And you know, I find myself, I might forget I was here last night. My life is so full. I don't even know how good he was to me because I don't remember it. Because I don't receive it from him. God is doing a work in your hearts right now. I am so thankful for that. The Spirit is alive and well and working. And I will be sitting tomorrow morning thinking about your faces and thinking about each of you. And I will be thanking God for you, that you were here. And that he was working. And that practice has made me live so much more of the goodness of God instead of the badness of the world. Just looking at what he did the day before. It's a practice that comes out of Ignatian and the Ignatian exercises. And they say to do it at night. I find I'm too tired at night. If I start thinking about my day, I get all, it agitates me because I'm not, because I just think of all the things I still have to do and I didn't do and I wish I had done and all that kind of stuff. So I don't go there in the morning. I just go to sleep. I'm usually tired enough to just go to sleep. Not that I don't pray, but I don't go there. And but the next morning, I can really find God's goodness. So you have to find a rhythm that works for you. That has worked for me. But are you receiving love? And then there's many things to attend to. Once your heart is quiet, safe, loving, you can walk in to whatever God has for you. And you are ready. You're prepared to meet that person, to be with that person, to open your heart to that person. And you begin by attending to them. From the first time you see them, whether they're just walking into a room, or whether you met them in the car parking lot before you got there, you are ready to attend to them and forget yourself. This isn't easy. Attending to another person is very, very difficult. I just want you to know that. It doesn't come easy. I still do what I just described to you on Sunday morning, you come out of church and hi, and you kind of get talking, and then you go to somebody else. I do that all the time. And I know better. I know that I'm not really loving people. I'm not doing God's business after church when I do that. I'm doing my business. God's business would be to really care for somebody, to really love somebody, to really give them presents. And if we were doing that and people walked away feeling more loved because they came to church, the sermon is never going to make them feel more loved. And love is the change agent. Don't ever forget that. And that has to come through the people in the church. That's why people need these skills. They need to know how to have a quiet heart. What church should do is deal with your heart. The things that you are distracted by. That's what the sermon should do. And by the time you leave and you have worshiped, your heart should be prepared and ready to meet somebody. And we're all off to our own agendas. We don't know anything else. Makes me sad. Because I think many people leave the church never having felt a touch of real love. So,
Judy,
yeah.
This is really counterculture.
Oh, it's terrible counterculture.
And even Christian counterculture.
Mm-hmm.
So how much time is there I mean, how much do I need to be doing this precondition stuff before I really feel like I'm ready to do this? Do you have a sense about that, or is there a...
Yeah, you will never be ready. I can say that to Jim because I know it. No, I'm kidding. Because I am never ready either.
So, yeah, and that's my question. So
yes.
How unprepared I might feel, so unprepared walking into a situation.
You might be unprepared, but if your focus is off yourself and onto them, and you have taken time to ask for God to be the one who's working and not you. And so I would say 10, 15 minutes you need to spend with the Lord before you walk into a situation where you know you're going to do this intentionally. But that precludes a life of having some disciplines.
I guess that's the underlying question. How much of this, for lack of a better phrase, different term, how much of the spiritual disciplines do I need to kind of engage in before
I could never tell you that. That's something between you and the Lord.
But it has something to do with that.
Oh, it has huge amounts to do with that. Yeah. I have just, I think that's part of the reason, the goodness that came out of my cancer. Because I just had hours to spend with the Lord. And I learned what His presence could do, even though I've been teaching this stuff for years. And we need God's love in our life. And we need to be receiving it. We need good relationships. We should have at least 5 people in our life who we know intimately who are giving us love. That we could call at any time and they could be there for us. We need the family of God around us. And my whole dissertation was about, the title of it was The Role of Adult Attachment in Predicting Spiritual Maturity. So what that was saying is adult relationships, does it really have an effect of bringing more spiritual maturity than our relationship with our parents or our upbringing? I tested it against childhood attachment. And it was significant that adult, secure relationships will predict spiritual maturity because we're receiving. And when we're receiving, we have more capacity to give. You can't give out of an empty heart. And so if you aren't spending time with the Lord and you don't spend time with intimate, good friends, you aren't receiving anywhere. And so your heart's going to be pretty empty of being able to love. And I always say, love is a change agent. God did that with Christ, and he desires for us to do that same thing. And so we need the capacity to have love to give to others. And but that means we've got to take time for relationships. We've got to take time for God. One of the things we had this weekend, we traveled all summer pretty much, and I just needed a good long break. At my age, I'm finding that when I get a break from Talbot, I'm gone. And we live in God's creation. But this last weekend, we were home, and I said, Jean said, why don't we go down to Corona Del Mar and just sit and read and watch the ocean, you know? So we went down there, and we got there, and it was a crowd. And everybody was looking at these big waves down at Newport Wedge. And I said, I want to go down there. I want to see the big waves. And Jean didn't want to go very much. And I said, I just really want to do this. I'll help find a parking place. We'll you know, because there was a big crowd there. And Channel 9 was there taking pictures. And I think Channel 2 was there too. And so we went down and wiggled our way through Newport Beach and got way to the end and got to the Wedge. Found a parking place, like two parking places in. It was amazing. And we took our chairs, and for 3 hours we watched 15, 16-foot waves. It blessed my soul. We saw dolphins swimming through them. We saw seals in the waves. It was the most beautiful time I'd ever spent, spent by the ocean. It was just amazing. And we sat there for 3 hours and just watched the waves. And we had our books to read and everything. We didn't crack a book, but God was just pouring into us, pouring into us. Just the peace. My heart was so much more at peace when I left that place. Even though I had a full first week of school this week ahead of me, I had a heart of peace. So you got to take time for God to fill you. Because you can't do this easily. You got to take time to do it. Our time is about gone, and I know we didn't get even past the first skill. I got more to teach on attending. I'm going to have you practice it and do all that. But we have 3 more weeks. I promise you we'll get through all of these. But I think this was important tonight. You need to know what you're getting into. Okay? You may decide to get home, go home and say, this isn't for me, I'm not there, this isn't what, I can't do this. But you may decide you want more, and I hope you decide you want more. Because the kingdom of God so needs people who can do what Jesus did and come alongside others and really love. Really love. So I'm thrilled you're here, and I want to pray for you.